The best dancer. Annabelle was the school's best dancer, something she reminded Taylor, Laura, and even 5-year-old Christina of every day. Mrs. Coolidge says I'm very gifted, she said, elongating the word gifted until it seemed to have 3 syllables instead of 2. She says I'll probably be a principal dancer at one of the world's most elite theaters. Mrs. Coolidge had said these things, yes, but she had said them to a number of students in need of inspiration as encouragement. Getting inspired was something Mrs. Coolidge thought was very important. Annabelle, she believed, was inspired, but inspired to win, to outdo, to beat everyone else. Mrs. Coolidge would prefer it if Annabelle simply liked to dance. Students, students, Mrs. Coolidge called to the small gaggle of girls surrounding Annabelle. I'd like to introduce you to our newest student, Sally. Sally is a most talented and gifted student. I hope you'll all take the time to greet her warmly. Annabelle looked at Sally with lowered brows. Sally didn't have a dancer's body. She was short with legs that looked bowed, like they belonged to a frog instead of an 11-year-old girl. Annabelle smirked. This girl would be no competition for Annabelle and her graceful, gifted performances. In the following weeks, however, it became clear that Annabelle had grossly underestimated Sally's dancing abilities. In fact, Sally was not just a gifted dancer, but Sally was an incredibly gifted dancer. She leapt and twirled and bowed and moved in ways Annabelle hadn't imagined possible for such a short girl. And to top it off, Sally was a nice girl. She didn't brag, she didn't rub her talent in her classmates' faces, and she never said no to helping one of the younger girls learn a new dance move. She was funny, she was smart, and everyone liked her. Annabelle was furious. Auditions for the lead of the school ballet were only 3 weeks away, and she was nearly positive that Sally would snatch the part right from underneath her. And so Annabelle devised a plan. On the morning of the audition, Annabelle filled a small paper bag with earthworms. There were 4 of them, big, juicy brown worms that she found sunning themselves on the sidewalk after the previous evening's rain. She felt them wriggle and twist in her hand as she placed them in the bag. She arrived at school just after Sally and placed the paper bag in her locker. Mrs. Coolidge, she said during their first class, I forgot something in my locker. Can I go get it? Mrs. Coolidge nodded yes and continued to talk about the importance of stretching. Annabelle hurried to her locker. She reached up to the top shelf, but the small bag was missing. She began to look frantically through the locker. She shook out her jacket, pulled out her bag, and emptied her pencil case. The worms were gone. Annabelle walked back to her class stiffly. She wasn't sure what to make of this development. The worms couldn't have walked away. She frowned. Had someone seen her collecting the worms? By the time Annabelle returned to class, it was time for auditions. Annabelle would perform first. She had prepared a beautiful piece in which she slid across the stage on her toes, emulating a flowering tulip. Annabelle was midway through her performance when she felt something warm and sticky land on her right shoulder. A few minutes later, she felt another drop on her head, and then again on her left shoulder. She looked down. The earthworms she had collected in the morning were draped across her shoulders. She could feel the 3rd earthworm dangling from her ear like some misshapen earring. Annabelle looked up, and from the rafter she saw Sally holding the small brown paper bag. Sally winked at her. Nice try, she mouthed. Sally got the lead that year. How to trick your sister. The plan was perfect. Rick had been working on it all week, in math class, English class, and history class. He sat in the back of the room, deep in thought. To the teacher, it looked like he was taking notes. In fact, he was taking notes, but not on algebra, To Kill a Mockingbird, or the Spanish-American War. Rick was a schemer, and now he had dreamed up the greatest scheme of his career. He was going to ruin his sister's birthday party. Rick didn't have anything against Emily. She was a nice enough sister. She helped him do the dishes, she kept out of his room, and on long car trips, she let him sleep when he wanted to sleep. But Rick loved playing tricks, and when it came to tricks, there was no better target than Emily. She liked her life to be orderly. She liked everything in its place. When she was taking notes on school, she used 9 different pens, all different colors, and an organizational scheme so complex it would take FBI scientists weeks to decode it. Rick was not like that at all. He was a messy kid. He liked his bedroom to be covered in dirty clothes and crumpled up paper. He liked his music loud and his fireworks louder, and surprises were his favorite thing in the world. The notebook he used in the back of math class didn't say math on it. It said, "Surprises, top secret, do not open." In it were the records of every trick he had ever played. There was a time he made his sister think all her dolls had moved away. There was a time he hidden Dad's car keys and made him 2 hours late for work. And there was his last great accomplishment, the time he disconnected the oven and made Mom think that Thanksgiving dinner would never be finished. That last trick would be hard for most kids, but Rick, though he never did great in school, was smart with his hands. His father was a mechanic and had shown him all sorts of neat things he could do with machines. Rick could fix washing machines, dishwashers, showers, and garage door openers. He could also, when it suited him, disconnect them completely. "I am a mechanical wizard," he wrote in his notebook. "No, a genius. Better yet, an evil genius." This was going to be his greatest triumph. All he needed was a remote control, a few bits of radio equipment, and 24 small fireworks. If there were a Nobel Prize for evil, he thought he would win it, for sure. The night before her party, Emily couldn't sleep. It was always like that when she was excited. She kept playing the party over in her mind. All the girls from her class were coming, and everyone was going to have a wonderful time. With her mother's help, Emily had planned everything down to the last detail. She had filled a binder with plans for games they would play, stories she would tell, and outfits she might wear. She had settled on a pale green dress with matching sandals. It was a simple outfit, but that was perfect. She didn't want anyone to know how much she was looking forward to this. The girls at school were nice to Emily, but there were none who would call her their friend. She was a shy person. In class, she always knew the answer, but never raised her hand. When she was with the other girls, she was like that too. Even when she knew the right thing to say, her mouth would freeze. She couldn't say it. At night, she would torture herself with the knowledge that she was funny, charming, and smart. She just didn't know how to make that side of her come out. Perhaps it would happen at her party. Perhaps she would emerge from her shell like a very organized butterfly. Perhaps at school the next week, she would have friends. If the party didn't work, it certainly wouldn't be her fault. This would be the finest birthday party of the season. The napkins would be colorful, the games would be fresh and exciting, and the cupcakes would be out of this world. "Are you sure you want cupcakes?" her mother had asked. "Maybe I'm old-fashioned, but I don't see what's wrong with a nice ordinary caramel cake. I'll make you one myself." "I know you will, Mom," said Emily. "You've made one for me every year since I was born. Caramel cakes are delicious, but they're boring. Cupcakes are popular. Cupcakes are fun." Her mom agreed. They would have cupcakes, 24 of them in every color of the frosting rainbow. To keep Rick away from them, her mother had placed them under lock and key. She had arranged for his friend Andy to come over during the party. They would be in the basement playing video games the entire afternoon. Emily didn't think it was possible for Rick to ruin her party if he wasn't allowed out of the basement. She hadn't counted on a remote control. Rick was proud of his handiwork. Each firework was attached to a tiny remote detonator the size of a pea. He stashed them in the back of the pantry the morning of the party, before his mother made him go into the basement to hang out with Andy. "You two just stay down here until all the girls have gone home," his mom said. "I don't want you doing anything that might upset your sister." "I promise I won't come through that door until the party is over," said Rick. His mom didn't understand why he was smiling. In the basement, Mom laid out a platter of sandwiches, soda, and cookies for Rick and Andy, but Rick was too excited to eat. From upstairs, he heard the telltale signs of a girl's birthday party: screaming, squealing, and laughter loud enough to shatter a window. "It sounds like they're having a lot of fun up there," said Andy, who wished he could be part of the party. "Not for long," said Rick. "Hand me that stepladder." He had promised his mother he wouldn't come through the door, and he was going to keep that promise. There was a small window on the far side of the basement, just big enough for him to crawl through. With Andy holding the ladder, Rick unlatched the window, squirmed through the frame, and crawled into the backyard. "Wait here," said Rick. "Don't close the window. I'll be back in 5 minutes." "Can I play FIFA?" asked Andy. "You can play whatever you want. Just don't close this window." He army crawled around the house to the door that led into the kitchen. Through the window, he saw his mother arranging the cupcakes on a tray. It was nearly time to strike. In Rick's family, the tradition was to sing happy birthday while the cake was still in the kitchen. Only when the song was over would Mom bring out the cupcakes, candles lit and frosting shimmering. This was Rick's opportunity. Mom went into the dining room and the singing started. Moving quickly but silently, Rick opened the kitchen door and went to work, nestling a tiny firework in the bottom of each cupcake. He resisted the urge to eat one of the little cakes. This was no time to goof around. By the time the song had finished, the cupcakes appeared undisturbed, and Rick had disappeared. "All right, girls," said Mom. "Here we go. Cupcakes, just like I promised." "I want the green one," said Rachel McEwen. "I want the red one," said Angela Beck. "I want the pink one and the yellow one and the blue one and the rainbow one," said Mary Kukan, who really loved cupcakes. Hold on," said Mom. "There's plenty for everyone. The one with the rainbow is for Emily." "Thanks, Mom," said Emily as she placed the cupcake on the plate. "These look awesome," said Angela. "Totally," said Rachel. "I want to eat all of them," said Mary. "Can I eat all of them?" "This is so perfect, Mom," said Emily. "Thanks so much." It was perfect. Everyone from school was here, and they were all having a great time. Emily had been funny. She had been fun. "This was the best party any of my friends have ever thrown," Rachel had told her. No one at school had ever called her friend before. The party had gone wonderfully, and Rick couldn't spoil it now. "All right, girls," said Mom. "Dig in." And that was when the explosions started. 24 little pops, like hail falling on a tin roof, went off, one after the other. When the girls' ears stopped ringing, there was smoke in the air and icing covering every surface. Pink icing on the table, green icing on the ceiling, and rainbow icing all over Emily's green dress. After a moment, the silence was broken. Emily started to cry. As the tears began to slip from her eyes, she felt a firm grip on her elbow. "Don't," said Rachel. "Do not cry. We're going to get him. Say it with me. We are going to get him." "We are," said Emily. "He's pretty handy, isn't he? Aren't you good with machines, too?" "I guess so. My dad taught us all sorts of things." "Then we'll need a little motor and a lot of fishing line." "What are we going to do with it?" "Tell me," said Rachel, with a mischievous grin spreading across her face. "What is your brother's favorite thing in the world?" It was an hour before Mom let Rick out of the basement. She was furious, but she was so confused and upset, she didn't even know how to punish him yet. "Go to your room," she said from the top of the basement stairs. "Why?" he asked. "What happened?" "I was down here the whole time. Wasn't I, Andy?" He didn't say anything. He was too smart to get involved in family fights. He slipped out behind Rick's mother and went to wait for his father to pick him up. Mom stood there, jaw clenched and face red. "Just go to your room," she said. "Go!" Rick whistled quietly as he walked to his bedroom, pausing in the dining room to inspect the scene of the carnage. In his head he began imagining the way he would write this down in his journal of nasty tricks. Never before, he thought, has a birthday party been so thoroughly ruined. This one will go down in history. At the table, Emily and one of the other girls from school, Rachel maybe, sat quietly. They said nothing to him as he passed by them, whistling just a teeny bit louder. He opened his bedroom door and found everything just the way he liked it. Clothes were piled on the floor, dirty cups and bowls were on the windowsills, and his journal was just where it was supposed to be, hidden behind the bookshelf by the door. As he reached for it, he heard a whirring noise, and the journal jumped away from his hand. "What the heck?" he said. He grabbed for the journal, but it jumped away again, slipping across the floor like a gecko. Someone had tied a string to it, and the string was connected to some unseen machine. He chased the journal across the room, into the hallway, and down the stairs. It gained speed as it was dragging into the dining room. He took the corners too fast, slipped on a piece of cake, and watched helplessly as his life's work was dragging through gobs of icing. "Stop it," he said. "It's getting icing all over. Emily, stop it." Emily said nothing, but Rachel allowed herself a tiny smile. By the time Rick was on his feet again, the journal had been dragged into the hallway. He chased it all around the first floor, from the kitchen to the living room, and back one last time into the dining room, where he slipped a second time. He followed the book into the den, but didn't see where it had gone. Finally, he heard a crackling sound and saw his journal burning in the fireplace. It was already too late to save. Rick burst into the dining room, his face red with icing and rage. "You," he said, "you destroyed my journal. You played a terrible trick on me." "I don't know what you're talking about," said Emily, as she licked a bit of icing off her finger. "You can ask my friend Rachel. We were here the entire time."